first introduce you to the man himself, the man behind great games such as Aladdin, RoboCop vs. Terminator, and the award-winning acclaimed Earthworm Jim, Mr. Tommy Tallarico, the CEO and creator of Video Games Live. Tommy?
I get two. Yo! Video Games Live. I've been a composer for over 22 years, and the reason I created Video Games Live is I wanted to prove to the world how culturally significant and artistic video games have become. But I also wanted to help usher in a whole new generation of young people to come out and appreciate the arts and to get interested in some symphonies and symphonic music. What is Video Games Live? It's all the greatest video game music of all time, performed by a symphony and choir, but what makes it really special and unique is everything is completely synchronized to massive video screens and a stage show production and special effects and rock and roll lighting and interactive elements with the crowd. So I kind of like to describe Video Games Live as having all the power and emotion of a symphony orchestra, but combined with the energy and excitement of a rock concert, mixed together with all the cutting-edge visuals and interactivity and technology and fun that video games provide. And as Janet was saying, we want to make the symphony fun, because it is fun and it can be fun. So, what I did is I basically took all the stuff that my generation and younger grew up on. We grew up on video games and video screens and interactivity and visual audience and Star Wars and we're that audience of MTV and rock and roll lighting. So I basically took all that stuff and I combined it with a symphony. It was only a couple hundred years ago when a bunch of Italians like myself sat around a table and said, how can we reinvent the symphony? And they were saying, I got an idea, let's dress people up in costumes. Let's tell let's tell a story through the vocals, and why don't we build these elaborate sets on stage? And that's how opera was formed. And so maybe we're kind of like the opera of the 21st century a little bit, in that we're using all the things, like I said, over the last 20, 30 years. And some people will ask, well, geez, isn't symphonies they're so posh and they're so everybody's in tuxedos and this and that, and I always recall reading about when the great Tchaikovsky debuted the 1812 overture. He had live cannons on stage, firing at the appropriate times.
Not at the audience.
Not at the audience. But and guys like Mozart and Beethoven, they were the rock stars of their time. I've always said that if Beethoven were alive today, he'd be a video game composer. There's no doubt in my mind. He wouldn't be a film composer. He wouldn't want people talking over his music all the time. But and the audience really holds this music very, very dear to their heart. When you're playing a video game, you become that character. The music becomes the soundtrack of your life. You're controlling it, and it's not like a motion picture, a film where you go, it's a passive experience, you're watching somebody else's story on screen unfold, there's lots of talking and dialogue, and there's music underneath, right? And take the biggest selling movie, Avatar. Can anyone here hum me the music to Avatar? No. Okay, so, I bet you can hum me Mario, though, a lot of you, right? Tetris and Zelda and the rest. But with video games, when you become that character, and that music becomes a part of your life, it becomes a part of you. So there's so much more emotional connection. And gamers and people who play these games have, it reminds them of their childhood. Or, we get people coming up to us after the show all the time with tears in their eyes going, man, when I started to hear Zelda, and I was brought back to when I was 9 years old, and me and my dad always used to play that game together for hours and days, and he passed away, and boy, that just brought me right back to my childhood. And that's what Video Games Live is really about. It's a complete celebration of the video game industry, but that feeling, that magic that happens when you have 3,000, 4,000, or 5,000 people in a room, and those feelings are going around. The great thing though about using a symphony as well is, you know, some of the best letters and emails that we get after a show are actually from non-gamers, are from maybe parents who took their kids, or grandparents who took their grandkids to the symphony for the first time. And they're the ones most blown away, because gamers know how cool video game music is already. You don't have to tell them that the music to Halo or Warcraft or Final Fantasy is great. They already know that. But when the parents see it, when the non-gamers see the show, they're the ones really most blown away. They're like, oh my gosh, I never knew the music was this powerful. I never knew the graphics were so incredible these days, and the characters and the storylines. I get it now. Now I know why my kids, you know, play so many video games. Thank you so much for helping to open my eyes, you know. So, because a lot of parents, when they were growing up, they knew Pac-Man and right? And so it's come so far. But that being said, we also represent the entire video game industry in that, you know, so you're hearing some of those old games like the Tetris and the Mario, but now played in its fullest, you know, with a big symphony and choir. And so I'll tell you another quick story. We were playing a show a couple months ago, and a woman in the orchestra, she's the oboe player, she comes up to me during the intermission, and she says, you know, I just want to let you know, I've been playing in this symphony for about 20 years, and my son, who's 17 years old, I've been trying to get him to come and see his mom play for his whole life. And tears started streaming down her eyes, and she says, you know what? When I told her I was playing this show, this is the first night he's here tonight, first time to see me play, and he brought all his friends. He's been bragging to all his friends for the last month, and you know, that's something special. But Video Games Live isn't just for gamers though, and that's the important thing. Anyway, we're so proud and thankful for everybody here for inviting us out to the Middle East. We've gotten so many emails and Facebook messages over the years from folks in this area to come out and play. And I mean, if any city in the world should have something as crazy as this, you know, Dubai should have been the first place we played. You know, it seems to be ahead of the curve. This is my very first time to Dubai. The first time, I gotta say, you know, from being in the United States, and you see the stories that are done in the U.S. Oh man, that place looks really cool, and this and that. But to come here for the first time, I've been here 2 days now. I mean, it's a magical place. I mean, we were driving in, I'm like, this looks like Star Wars. This is so cool. You know, how could we? You know, so I think if any city were to host Video Games Live, this would be the one. So it took us 8 years to get here. We've been touring the show for over 8 years. But, you know, finally happy to be here. It'll be really interesting to see what the audience is, how they perceive the show. And, you know, it's something that's very new. I mean, if you think about it, for the first time ever in the history of music, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of young people are coming out to see a symphony. That's never happened before. I mean, even at the time of Beethoven and Mozart, it was for rich old people. You know, that's mainly who went to see the symphony, and you know, the older folks. But here's something that's happening now, where all over the world, no matter where we go, you know, we've played 40,000 people in China, we've played in New Zealand and Mexico, all over Brazil, and all over Europe and US and Canada, Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, you name it, we've probably been there. And isn't that amazing that you know, something like this can go all over the world and people instantly say, video games, music. Because when I first created the show, everyone thought I was insane, completely crazy. They're like, wait a second, video games, young kids don't go to the symphony, so that's dumb. And old people don't play video games, so you're doubly screwed, you know. And no one believed really believed in it. And by the way, that was the video games companies telling me that. And so, but it took me 3 years to put on the first show. Started the company in 2002. We put our first show on ever. First show was at the Hollywood Bowl in 2005 at the LA Philharmonic. And you know, I figured, hey, I might as well go right for the straight to the top. Start at the top. And you know, people were like, well, if maybe 2,000 people show up, you know, we'll be surprised. And over 11,000 people showed up for that first show. And we've been doing it ever since. So, you know, and I think games are growing. You know, most people think that video games are just for teenage boys or something, you know, but the reality is that the average video gamer is 35 years old. The average gamer is 35 years old. I'm 44 myself, so I was the first generation to grow up on this stuff. And I'll tell you something else surprising is about 40% of our audience is female. So there's a lot of, now you told me backstage that that your daughter, after talking to your daughter.
She saw it in Seattle.
She has seen the show in Seattle.
Yeah,
so.
she was so excited. What? You're doing video games live? I'm so there.
And it's, first thing I said to you, see the female, your daughter, seeing the show, because a lot of people think, oh, it's just going to be a bunch of, you know, 20-something-year-old guys. And it's not the case at all. It really is. You know, really is enjoyable by anyone. I mean, and it's great for the girls too. They, you know, even if they don't play video games, to, you know, take the boyfriends out for a night at the Symphony is, you know, get to dress up or whatever. And it's funny though. I mean, you look out in the audience and you'll see, you know, some kids will be dressed up in the tuxedos and this and that.
It's a symphony concert,
It's
right?
a symphony concert, and then but they'll be sitting next to some kid in a ripped Mario T-shirt, and then next to somebody who's actually dressed up like Mario. So you know, you never know the audience that we're going to get. So it'll be interesting to see what we find out here. But anyway, that's the spiel.